Some new running back signings in the NFL have a big impact on fantasy football, and we're going to break it down with SI fantasy analyst Michael Fabiano. And Fabs, whenever we're talking running backs, we're always excited to see where some of these guys go, except if there's already a good running back on that team to begin with. Let's get to some of these running backs now that signed in the last week. Starting off, Mike Davis joins the Atlanta Falcons. We know Todd Gurley is out, but still a little bit of a committee down there in hot Atlanta.
Well, right now, Mike Davis is the guy, right? I mean, like that committee has, well, let's just put it bluntly, some very unappetizing fantasy players. So I feel like as we stand right now, Mike Davis is an RB2. And you may think that I'm crazy, but he was the 12th best running back in fantasy football last season. And that's with Christian McCaffrey playing 3 games. So Davis did nothing for 3 games. He was very good. He proved that he can shoulder a pretty heavy workload. He also caught the ball out of the backfield very successfully. Now, with that being said, Bill, I don't think Atlanta's done in that backfield, and I would not be surprised if they drafted their running back of the future. But for right now, Mike Davis is a top 50 pick.
All right, let's move on to the Las Vegas Raiders, where Kenyan Drake joins Josh Jacobs. Fabs, I know Josh Jacobs, for the most part, he was going in the first or second round. What's the impact on Kenyan Drake coming to town?
It stinks, both sides. Both sides of the equation, this stinks, because Jacobs was a featured back last year, had a 37% touch share. That's not happening in 2021. Kenyan Drake wasn't a true featured back, but he had a 30% touch share, sharing some of the workload with Chase Edmonds. And now you put these guys together, and it's an absolute recipe for just headaches from a fantasy football perspective, right? Because one week it'll be Jacobs, one week it could be Drake. Drake's going to get more opportunities as a pass catcher. That means Josh Jacobs won't ultimately, right? So I'm working on my latest one-man 5-round mock draft. I don't have Jacobs in the top 30 picks because you're looking at potentially a 60-40 split with 2 really talented players. This was the worst free agent move as it pertained to fantasy football, because Jacobs goes from being a guy who is a top 10 or 12 fantasy running back to somebody who's now an RB2, and Drake, who was a top 16 running back last season, is now maybe a flex at best. This one hurts.
Yeah, I agree, especially because we know that workhorse running backs, the bell cows of the NFL, they're hard to come by. David Montgomery, he was a bell cow for a lot of fantasy teams that won the championship in 2020. The Chicago Bears running back, he'll get some company in 2021 after Chicago signed Damien Williams. What do you make of this move?
This stinks part 2. How about that, right? Because Montgomery was great in the second half of last season. And you know what, Bill? We're going to be able to tell our grandkids that one year David Montgomery went on an unbelievable run that helped us win a fantasy football championship. And you know why we're going to have to tell that story? Because he's never going to be that good again, right? Damien Williams comes in, and he missed all of last season, so he's either really fresh or really out of shape. I would guess he's probably really fresh. He knows the offense because Matt Nagy was the OC in Kansas City when Williams was there earlier in his career. The last time we saw Damien Williams on the field, it was the Super Bowl, and the dude might have won the MVP. He's a good player. And oh, by the way, you forget about Tariq Cohen? So all of a sudden, David Montgomery, who got a lot more opportunities as a pass catcher last year because Cohen was out, those are gone. Those are gone, and Williams is going to eat into his touches. So for me, if you are drafting David Montgomery based on his final 6 games of success last season, well, you're going to be very disappointed. He's still in the RB2 conversation, but not nearly as high as he was before they added Williams. Keep in mind, what was the big issue that we all had going into 2021 drafts about Clyde Edwards-Helaire? Well, Kansas City still got Damien Williams. Now, that's David Montgomery's problem.
All right, great stuff as always. And Fabs, we're keeping everyone up to date on all the latest free agent signings and the impact that they have on fantasy football. Check it all out. Go to si.com/fantasy.